Medical cannabis in the UK best practices guidelines are urged amid growing regulatory scrutiny by Sarah Sinclair. The UK medical cannabis industry is reaching a tipping point, and experts are urging clinics to follow best practices as regulators look to crack down on what has been described as a pseudo-recreational market. The UK Health and Social Care Watchdog, the Care Quality Commission, noted a 118% increase in prescribed cannabis from 2021 to 2023. Previous reports have also noted 100% increases. Regulators have expressed concern that patients are being prescribed more than the recommended monthly dosage and requesting flowers with THC over 30%. Professor Mike Barnes, founder of the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society, says, "I'm very against some of those of the sector using medical cannabis prescribing as a pseudo-recreational market." The Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society has published a good practices guide, which recommends that any prescriptions more than 2 grams per day, that's about 2 joints a day, with flower more than 22% THC should be approved by a panel of peers. The majority of patients need no more than 2 grams per day, whereas some are being prescribed up to 6 grams, explains Professor Barnes. The last 12 months have seen an influx of North American brands associated with recreational cannabis use coming to the UK, such as Tyson 2.0 and Cookies. The Clinician Society recommends that producers avoid using names like Girl Scout cookies. They don't convey useful information about the medical value of the plant, says Barnes. Professor Barnes also says that the sector needs to move away from an obsession with flower, which currently makes up about 80% of prescriptions. Clinics also need to make sure that they are accessing medical records rather than relying on self-reported questionnaires. This is serious medicine, and we must treat it seriously, says Professor Barnes. Robert Jaffe, a partner at law firm Field Fisher, believes the cannabis industry has reached a tipping point in the UK, seeing enough growth to warrant scrutiny from regulators. Obviously, increased scrutiny causes problems for some of the clinics. The doctors are the gatekeepers, he adds. If recreational consumers are being admitted to the medical market, then they're going to have to prove that the doctor hasn't done his job properly. The Cannabis Industry Council says it supports an independent and effective regulatory regime for clinics and is in active dialogue with other regulators to ensure compliance and patient safety. So it's interesting to read about medical cannabis in the UK. They're going through the same social discussions about the acceptance of cannabis that we did years ago. Is cannabis use medical or recreational? For those like me who see recreation as medicinal, there is no question. So I use the word vice rather than recreational. A vice is a wicked and immoral act and must be capped or limited for safety concerns like alcohol or tobacco. Without any evidence for support, the UK regulators believe that cannabis should be capped at 2 joints per day. Is that because they consider it a vice? The data collected from our dosing project study indicates that the optimal therapeutic effect for pain is 4 grams per day. That's just an average. There are many more patients who use more or less. So from my perspective, the UK regulators are acting under fear and conjecture rather than from evidence. Doctors are giving in to social myths rather than base their opinions on the evidence. As North American products slowly invade the UK medical market, will regulators continue to consider cannabis a vice? Will they relax their cap, or will the Brits be forced to only have 2 joints a day? This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Oh man, Dr. T. So they said, they said 2 joints a day is the most anyone should take. Now, I'm confused. Is it 2 grams per joint or 1 gram per joint that they are calculating this at?
1 gram per joint.
1 gram per joint. So 2 grams per day. So I guess if
your joints 2 grams?
I'd say my joints are a gram, but I smoke, more than 2 a day on average.
Yeah, most of my patients smoke more than 2 a day. I would say that's the low end of what my patients use.
I'd say at least like an eighth a day. Eighth a day keeps the doctor away, right, Dr. T?
Well, yeah, but you can't afford an eighth a day unless you're growing your own.
I mean, it sucks for all the people in Ohio because they're just getting tenths. They're getting shorted.
Did they factor spliffs into this, the European cigarettes, if you will?
They are against. I mean, this guy doesn't even want to. The issue is that there's only 2 approved suppliers in the UK, and so doctors are prescribing for other suppliers, and they don't have any regulations. So people are getting 6 grams per day, and they are, they're getting access to things that they don't want them to have.
That's definitely happened all throughout the UK right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just emblematic of like this weird, uptight English, still Victorian, puritanical Church of England perspective where all alteration of your consciousness is wrong because it really places you in peril of understanding that you shouldn't be controlled by the king or the bishop of the Church of England. And, this is the same government that literally made China accept opium dens and opium addiction at a population-wide scale at the tip of a bayonet and the cannon. Really fuck the British government in every way, shape, or form.
Shout out to King James, man. King James.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
You're not talking about the Bible, right, Rico?
LeBron James.
You have any thoughts on this, Jenny, before we move on?
I mean, I don't. I think it's really interesting. That was one of the things that struck me the most when I was in Europe at the Cannabis Europe conference, ironically, as the medical people over there really, really they were pissed that there were wrappers being used to promote weed. They were pissed about literally everything. They don't think that there should be adult use. They don't think that there should be branding, that it should all be tincture and stuff. It's so,
They're very stuffy.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I think they're going to find that that's a battle that is, they're not going to win. So.
That's true because it's just a plant. It can grow anywhere, and there's a lot of it growing out there, and a lot of it getting shipped out there all the time.
Yeah, but we've got to resolve whether we want the social, cultural world of cannabis. I mean, that's part of it. It's the way we commune with each other, and so to try to put it into this medical versus rec box doesn't make a lot of sense because of what it is. It really sort of forces us to create a new paradigm.
I totally agree with you. But Dr. T, don't you think a lot of it is because in London and whatnot, a lot of people are still living in the past, and where like only if it's medical do people feel more comfortable with it, because then they feel like it's more of a necessity as opposed to a vice, as you would say?
Yeah, but that's the way we started in California. I mean, we introduced the idea that, hey, this is a helpful product. It's not a harmful product. It's therapeutic, it's medical. And then eventually once people sort of get comfortable with that idea, then they start realizing like the medicine can be over the counter. And then, there's other aspects to it. There's this whole culture and community around it that important part of the process, the setting. So it really sort of broadens this idea of medicine, but they got to start where we did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You can see the miracle of cannabis medicine evident in California. I mean, when 215 happened, everybody started smoking cannabis for medicine, and then within a few short years, they passed recreational cannabis, and almost everyone was healed miraculously of their conditions that they needed chronic marijuana to heal these chronic conditions. And I myself was in fact healed until needed to get medical notes for judging the Emerald Cup to get as many samples. And then I had a horrid relapse against my medical condition. I'm just so thankful.
Oh boy.
The medical system helping me be safe and healthy.
And shout out to the Emerald Cup.
We're thankful that you are healthy, happy and healthy.
Facts.
Lime's going to be pissed if they can only smoke 2 joints a day. It really screws the whole song up,
Smoke 2 joints in the morning. Okay, next song, you guys.
That was pretty popular. Speaking of which, we're gonna go